Shawn Kennedy is a racetrack chaplain. I got to tell you, Shawn, and welcome. This is the first time I've ever sat down with a racetrack chaplain. Racetrack Chaplaincy of Canada is the organization. Yep. How and when did chaplaincy ever become a part of the racing industry?
Well, about 35 years ago in the United States, the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America was born. And in the United States, there's approximately 70 chaplains on racetracks there. We started here officially in 2004 in Toronto. I'd been a volunteer chaplain in Winnipeg for many years at Assiniboine Downs there, but we started in 2004 here, and I'm the chaplain at Woodbine and Fort Erie racetracks.
Now, when you were a youth pastor in Manitoba, you were a part-time or volunteer chaplain. Why the interest?
Well, I'm from a racing family. My family bred, owned, and trained racehorses. I trained racehorses for 10 years as well, so I've been in racing all my life.
So it's in your DNA?
It's in my blood.
Yeah, it's in your blood. And you also, for 10 years, were an amateur jockey yourself?
I was an amateur jockey, yes. Yeah. That's jockeys that are bigger than professional, taller, heavier, but compete worldwide. And Princess Anne is an amateur jockey. So it's very popular in Europe. So you're amateur because you're too big to be a professional? Exactly.
What's the ideal weight for a professional?
Professional's ideal weight is probably between 110 and 115 pounds.
That's pretty small.
That is small,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Why don't we just take a look at you at work here? I think we're going to start out with you on a horse. There you are.
That's me galloping in the morning at Woodbine. That's me walking the shed rows.
And you exercise horses.
Yes, I do.
And then you are connecting with the various staff attached to these various racing teams, right?
Yes.
And do they see you as a chaplain, or do they see you as a fellow horseman, or both?
I think they see me as both. They see me out on horses in the morning, and then they also see me interacting with them afterwards. It's good. They know I've got my feet, I'm walking in their shoes. I got my feet wet in the industry, so.
Now, a lot of people's eyes widened a bit when we talked about racing and chaplaincy because of the gambling factor.
Right.
I think most people aren't aware of the fact, or at least don't think about the fact, that any professional sport generates billions of dollars in gambling, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's football, basketball, baseball. In fact, there are those who say that most professional sports would not exist if it weren't for gambling. It's just that with horse racing, it's more upfront. How do you respond to those who show amazement that there is this conjunction of chaplaincy and gambling?
Well, I have a standard answer for that, and I always say, I'll bet you can't find a verse in the Bible that says gambling's a sin. There are definitely better things you can do with your money, absolutely. But you know, well, you could invest in the stock market. I understand that never goes down. Right.
Right.
Enron comes to mind.
Yeah.
But it's dependent on the gambling factor. But it's also no different from any other sport where, yes, there is gambling involved, but it's people. There are people in the industry that I'm involved with primarily. And really, the only difference between a stockbroker and a gambler at the racetrack is probably the kind of clothes they wear.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you, and I think that you know, that's a perspective that needs to be heard more often. The fact is that wherever you go, whatever industry, God's heart is for the people.
Sure.
And that's where your heart is. How did you get into chaplaincy?
Well, I used to train racehorses, as I said, and I was training in Cleveland, Ohio, and I was helping the chaplain who was on the track down there, and I really felt God calling me into the ministry. I had a barn full of horses, and while I was doing it, I felt torn. During that time, we went through several chaplains, and I always got kind of stuck in there to help out and everything. And finally, I remember talking to the president of the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America, and I said, you know, I'm really struggling with this. And he says, well, listen, as long as you've got horses, don't worry about it. You know, God will work things out. And in 3 months, I'd run out of horses. And I felt God was saying loud and clear, well, you know, it's time for another calling.
Did you have to take any special training for this, or it's just your understanding of the culture just naturally suited you?
Well, I like to say I have as many degrees as Jesus. And I come from the school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
And I did take some counseling courses. I was trained in Sun Life Ministry as a youth pastor, and that's helped quite a bit. So that's been very, very good. But mostly it's seat of the pants work.
Now, what do you find? You know, you're working those paddocks, you're working those horses, you're interacting with these people day in and day out at Woodbine, and also it's Fort Erie.
Mm-hmm. At Fort Erie
At Fort Erie as well.
Yep.
What do you encounter?
People are the same everywhere.
Yeah.
They want to know, do they matter?
Yeah.
Do their lives matter? Are things going to be okay? I do a lot of funerals, memorials, weddings. They want to know, does God care about me? Does God care about what I'm going through? And the work at the track is very, very hard.